When my family stood up that night and called me a liar, I didn't flinch. I'd been preparing for that betrayal my whole life. Elaine's voice cracked through the microphone, sweet and poisonous. She never served a single day. My sister-in-law faked it all. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. My mother turned away. And Gavin, my own brother, smiled. They thought this was justice. They thought humiliating me in front of 300 people would finally erase the shame they carried for years. What they didn't know was that the army never erased me. It simply locked me away, just like I'd learned to lock my silence. As I stood there, heat rising in my chest, I realized how quiet the room had become. The kind of silence that only happens right before a verdict or a storm. Then the doors burst open. Boots hit the floor in perfect rhythm. The officer's voice thundered over the crowd. "Stand down, Colonel." Gasps. Confusion. And for the first time in years, every accusing eye turned not with scorn, but with fear. My name is Noah Spencer, and this is the night my family tried to destroy my honor, and the night the truth marched in. The smell of roasted chicken lingered in the air, heavy and warm, mixing with the faint sound of silverware against porcelain. Every Sunday, my family gathered at my mother's old house, the same one where I grew up, the same one that still looked brighter without me in it. Laughter filled the room, too loud and too polished, like they were trying to convince themselves it was genuine. I sat quietly at the end of the table, a guest in the home that used to be mine. Gavin, my younger brother, was talking about his newest development project, a gated neighborhood he called the Vance Meadows. He said the name with pride, and Elaine, his wife, smiled like she owned the world. "Named after my father," she said smoothly. "General Harold Vance led over 5,000 men. He believed in serving this country with action, not empty words." Her gaze slid toward me, sharp, deliberate. I didn't look up. I cut another small piece of bread. My mother's voice broke the silence. "Noah, dear, you once worked for the Department of Defense, right? What unit was that again?" I kept my tone steady. "Rescue Authority 7, Humanitarian Operations. You remember?" Elaine let out a quiet laugh, soft but cutting. "Oh, that charity group. I didn't realize they handed out military ranks for that sort of thing." The room went still. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hesitate. Gavin tried to fill the silence with a joke that only made it worse. I stayed calm. Years of silence had taught me that defending yourself only makes mockery louder. When dinner ended, my mother pressed a container of leftovers into my hands without meeting my eyes. I thanked her and stepped out into the cold. Snow drifted through the trees, quiet and slow. In the car, I checked my phone. A new email blinked at the top of the screen. Invitation Recognition Ceremony, Fort Liberty, NC. My fingers trembled. I opened it, reading the words again and again. Adonides Humanitarian Service Recognition. Lieutenant Noah L. Spencer. 18 years. And someone still remembered. What I didn't know then was that this single message, this quiet echo from the past, would ignite a storm that would burn through everything my family thought they knew about me. 3 days after that dinner, my phone rang before sunrise. My mother's voice came through thin and trembling. "Noah, Elaine says you sent yourself a fake letter from the Department of Defense. What are you doing, honey?" I froze. I hadn't told anyone about that email. Not her, not anyone. I drove straight to her house. She stood by the kitchen table, holding her coffee cup like it might shatter. I showed her the real message on my phone. Fort Liberty's seal, the official address. Everything legitimate. She stared at it for a moment, then sighed. "Elaine says you always imagine things bigger than they are. I don't know what to believe anymore." Her words landed heavier than any accusation. By the afternoon, Cedar Falls already had its version of the story. At the cafe, people lowered their voices as I passed. Someone whispered, "She's the one who faked her service." On the local forum, a post appeared with my email and the caption, "When imagination goes too far." Later, I learned Elaine had gone into my mother's basement, found an old folder of half-burned papers from years ago, and sent photos of them around claiming that was all my so-called service record. I couldn't defend myself. The truth was locked behind government clearance I could never break. So I said nothing. That night, a message appeared on my phone. Still keeping quiet, Noah. Reed Connors. The name hit me like a jolt. I hadn't heard from him in nearly 20 years. We met the next day at a diner just off the highway. The place smelled of rain and burnt coffee. Reed walked in wearing a government badge, his eyes the same steady gray I remembered. "I work in classified record control now," he said. "You've been accused of stolen valor. I checked your file. Your record was deleted from public access in 2007. The order came from Harold Vance, Elaine's father." He slid a photograph across the table. I was in it, covered in dust, cradling a wounded child amid rubble and smoke. "You were there," he said quietly. "So was I." He explained that Vance had erased my name to bury a mistake, the failed glass veil mission, the retreat that left civilians behind. When I disobeyed and went back for them, he erased me instead of admitting it. "And now your family's complaint has reopened everything," Reed said. "The department's reviewing your case. You'll be called in." "If I speak, I'll break national security," I whispered. "If you stay silent, they'll rewrite who you are." Outside, snow covered the highway, swallowing every sound. For the first time in 18 years, the past was no longer buried. It was walking straight toward me. ChatGPT and I. 3 weeks later, the town gathered under a sky too bright to belong to winter. Flags hung from storefronts, and the square buzzed with the kind of noise that only happens when everyone wants to be seen doing the right thing. It was the Veterans Memorial Day ceremony, funded, of course, by my brother's company. I came only because my mother asked me to. Elaine stood on stage in a scarlet dress, the color of confidence and warning. She smiled for the camera's microphone in hand. "Today we honor those who truly served this nation," she said, voice ringing clear. "In a world full of false stories, sometimes honor is borrowed by those who never earned it." The crowd hushed. I felt a shift, a pulse of recognition, before she said my name. Noah Spencer, my sister-in-law. A woman never listed in any military record. Silence dropped like a curtain. Even the flag stopped moving. My mother lowered her gaze. Gavin didn't flinch. He nodded and added, "The people deserve the truth." A camera flash split the air, then another. Dozens of phones rose like bayonets. I didn't defend myself. In a small town, once the whisper starts, anything you say becomes proof. So I turned and walked away, the crowd parting like I carried a disease. From the edge of the square, I caught sight of a man in uniform, Reed Connors. He didn't call out, just a single nod, the kind of gesture that means I see you. That night, my face was everywhere. Local woman faked military service for years. Comments flooded in sharp as nails. Someone photoshopped my face onto a movie soldier's body, calling me Private Pretend. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. "They're opening the archive. Be ready." I stared at the screen, heartbeat steady, not scared, just tired. Gavin's publicity stunt had drawn the wrong eyes. The Department of Defense was reviewing every name on its recognition list. Because of Elaine's rumor, Fort Liberty had temporarily removed mine. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. The woman staring back wasn't humiliated. She was waiting. "If honor can be erased by gossip," I whispered, "then maybe it was never real to them." At 2 a.m., the phone rang. Reed's voice came through the static. "You've been summoned. Internal review at Fort Liberty. Something's moving, Noah. Do you know who erased me? I do. But not over the phone. Someone's watching the channels." Morning came gray and heavy. Reporters sat in cars at the end of my driveway, cameras ready. Before I could even pour coffee, a knock hit the door. A woman stood there, wind whipping her coat. "Lila Stone, freelance journalist. I write about veterans who get erased by bureaucracy. I think you're one of them. But I need proof." I led her inside, opened a drawer, and handed her a small silver spoon engraved RA7 glass veil. Her eyes widened. "Rescue Authority 7, she whispered. "The blacklisted mission. They say a female officer saved a group of children before it was wiped from the record. Was that you?" I didn't answer. Later that day, Reed called again. He'd found the deletion order. It wasn't for national security, it was for shame. Harold Vance, Elaine's father, had ordered the wipe after his unauthorized retreat left 12 civilians dead. He buried the scandal by erasing me. That night, an anonymous email arrived. Attached was a shaky video file, Rubble Chaos, and a woman sprinting through smoke, a child in her arms. My uniform, my voice. "That's you," Reed said. "You saved us." My throat closed. The screams in the clip weren't echoes anymore. They were back. Real. Reed's voice softened. "The video came from Colonel Maynard. He served under you. He's on the board for your hearing." Before I could reply, the TV roared to life. Gavin and Elaine sat on a news set. "We're not attacking her," Elaine said sweetly. "We're protecting our family's name." Gavin leaned forward. "If my sister truly served, why does no one remember her?" I turned the screen off. My pulse slowed into something like resolve. Reed's voice came again. "Don't run, Noah. Tomorrow they'll remember." Outside, snow began to fall again, heavy and unbroken, as if the sky itself wanted to cover what this town had done and what I was about to uncover. A cold mist clung to Fort Liberty as I walked through the gate, my navy suit catching the wind. The sign read, "Internal Service Verification Hearing." Inside the hallway echoed with the sound of boots. When I entered the chamber, I froze. An American flag hung on the far wall, its corner burned. I had folded that same flag once, over a coffin in Syria. 4 officers sat behind a long table. The nameplate read, "Spencer Noah L. Verification pending." "Mrs. Spencer," one began, "you are accused of impersonating a veteran. Do you have proof of service?" I kept my voice steady. "I can't provide documents for an operation this department classified. I served, but I can't name where." Silence thickened. A young officer leaned forward. "So, no verifiable record?" I placed a small silver spoon, engraved RA7 glass veil on the table. "This came from Aleppo. It belonged to a child I carried out." Colonel Maynard stiffened. "I know that spoon," he said softly. "I was there. She was the chief medic." The presiding officer looked up. "You're saying she served in Syria?" "Yes. She saved 14 of us, including me." Then another officer demanded, "If that's true, why was her name erased?" Maynard's answer cut through me. "Through the room, because Harold Vance ordered it." The cameras blinked red. Someone was watching. Outside, Gavin and Elaine stared at the feed, realizing too late that Vance's name had surfaced. When the hearing adjourned, Maynard stopped me. "The video's coming," he said. "What video?" "The one they buried in 2007. That night, Reed called. "It's out, Noah. The Aleppo footage." I opened my laptop. Flames, rubble, a crying child, and me running through smoke. The caption read, "Unknown female officer. Operation Glass Veil, 2007. By morning, I was back at Fort Liberty. A folder waited restored. Authorized by Command 2025. "Your records reinstated," the officer said. "Lieutenant Colonel Spencer." Then came the order from 2007, signed Harold Vance. Reed's voice was steady. "He erased you to hide a failed withdrawal that killed civilians. Elaine knew she accessed his files and altered your record." Before the truth went public, Gavin and Elaine held a press conference. The Pentagon confirmed her record was fake. Reed exhaled. "They're striking first." I slipped the silver spoon into my pocket. "Let them. Tomorrow, they'll see who finishes it." Rain drummed against the windows as Gavin and Elaine's Grand Truth Conference filled the town hall of Cedar Falls. A banner outside read, "Protecting the honor of real veterans." They wanted spectacle humiliation, a public execution of my name to erase her father's disgrace. I walked in, uninvited. They couldn't bar me. They'd already stolen enough. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. Elaine stood on stage, crimson lips curved into confidence, envelope in hand. "We have proof that Noah Spencer falsified records to claim military honors and government aid." 100 eyes swung toward me. Gavin smirked. I didn't speak. I only adjusted my collar and pinned the silver RA7 insignia to my chest. Elaine opened her mouth again, then the doors burst wide. Boots struck the floor in perfect rhythm. 3 military police entered, led by a commanding officer whose voice shook the air. "This assembly is under federal observation. Stand down, Colonel." The room froze. Elaine's face drained of color. Gavin's smirk vanished. The officer stepped forward, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, one of my old trainees. He saluted. "Ma'am, by order of the Department of Defense, Lieutenant Colonel Noah L. Spencer's service record has been fully restored and verified." Agents began seizing Elaine's folders, her fake evidence, her doctored files. A reporter stammered, "Is this some kind of joke?" Hayes answered firm and cold, "No, this is justice." I stood still and let the truth speak louder than I ever could. Somewhere behind me, my mother sobbed softly. For the first time, Cedar Falls didn't see a fraud standing before them. They saw a soldier silent, but undeniable. After the chaos, military police sealed the hall. Cameras still rolled as Elaine sat frozen on stage, her microphone clattering to the floor. Her face had gone pale, her hands trembling. A military investigator stepped forward and read from a document. "Elaine Spencer, you are summoned for questioning on unauthorized access and alteration of classified military records." Gavin sprang from his chair. She only did what her father told her. The investigator's tone was calm, almost pitying. General Harold Vance passed away 3 weeks ago, and his files confirm he ordered Noah Spencer's record deleted to cover his own failure at Aleppo. Elaine broke down sobbing. "I was trying to protect him. I didn't mean for it to go this far." The lights, the cameras, the silence, it all turned on her. No one seemed to notice the bitter irony in trying to destroy me. They had unearthed the truth they'd buried for years. A uniformed officer approached me quietly. "Ma'am, the Department of Defense has officially reinstated your rank and service record. They've also authorized the medal you were never given." He placed a small wooden box in my hands. Inside, a silver humanitarian medal gleamed faintly under the lights. I looked at it for a long time. "I don't need anyone to know," I whispered. "I just need them to stop." Reed stepped beside me, his voice steady. "No one can take back your honor, Noah. You didn't win it today, you just reminded them it never left." Later that night, the department released Vance's confession letter. He admitted erasing my record to protect the government from scandal. Gavin and Elaine weren't prosecuted, but the town turned its back on them. Lila Stone's article appeared the next morning, "The Soldier Who Stayed Silent." Within hours, it spread across the country. By sunrise, my gate was covered in flowers from strangers. I kept only one bouquet, yellow chrysanthemums. Their scent mingled with the morning wind, soft and finally real. ChatGPT Danai. A year passed. Spring came quietly to Cedar Falls, soft rains soaking the earth that had once held so much bitterness. The town gathered again for the Veterans Memorial, smaller this time, stripped of speeches and spectacle. No banners, no television crews, just flags, the wind, and the sound of birds returning. I sat in the last row, wearing the same faded khaki jacket that had survived more than war. Colonel Maynard stood on the wooden platform, his voice low and steady. "Some serve and are never recognized," he said. "And some, though cast aside, choose silence not for fear but for honor." He paused, eyes finding mine through the crowd. Quiet yet unshakable, that's what makes a soldier. The square fell completely still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. In the front row, my mother sat with her hands folded tight, tears slipping down her cheeks. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The silence between us carried everything that words had once broken. When the ceremony ended, Gavin's little boy broke free from his mother's grasp and ran toward the memorial wall. He placed a single yellow chrysanthemum at the base of the stone engraved with my name. No one told him to. I watched him for a long moment. The air was warm, carrying the scent of grass and sunlight after rain. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not victory, not pride, just stillness. Reed stood beside me, smiling faintly. "You're still keeping silent?" he asked. "Silence is the one thing they can't take," I said. We turned toward the hill. The flag rippled in the breeze whole again. The burned corner had been sewn back, the stitching fine and deliberate proof that what's mended can be stronger than before. Sunlight broke through the clouds, glinting against the metal on my chest. I took a slow breath, eyes on that flag, the same one I once folded for the fallen. Finally, I whispered more to myself than to anyone else. At last, silence knows how to speak. The wind carried it away, gentle and final. The town, the hurt, the noise, all of it faded beneath that restored flag, waving steady over the hill, 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 steady over the hill. steady over the hill, steady over the hill, steady over the hill, steady